In this video, we compare kayaks to canoes. I use a bad word.
Oh, didn't see that one.
And then I go down the chute. In part 3 of our Mississagi River adventure, I attempt to resolve a very contentious issue that has plagued humanity for decades. Today, I will decide which is better for a river adventure like this, the canoe or the kayak. So join me as I take you 28 kilometers or 17 miles down some of the many swifts and rapids of the Mississagi River. I have selected 6 categories for comparison: storage, speed, portaging, maneuverability, stability, and comfort. So let's begin with storage. I've done a couple of camping trips using kayaks. Despite their narrow shape and low profile, the amount of gear that can be carried in one still surprises me. You just have to pack them differently than a canoe. Use smaller dry bags that are squishy and can be stuffed into the smaller nooks and crannies inside the kayak's hull. On the other hand, a canoe is a lot more forgiving when it comes to packing the gear. Large dry bags or even plastic bins will fit easily inside a canoe. I suspect that between a kayak and a canoe of equal length, when it comes to payload capacity, the canoe will probably win every time. Now let's talk about speed. I've never been in a race between a canoe and a kayak, so I can't say for sure.
Well, you're seeing some nice cliffs.
But I suspect the single-person kayak should outpace a single-person canoe in most cases. I think the double-bladed kayak paddle has a lot to do with that. Though there's no rule that says you can't use a double-bladed paddle in a canoe. I have, and I did prefer it over the traditional canoe paddle. Even though I think for the average recreational paddler, the kayak has the edge when it comes to flat water speed. Our next category for comparison is portaging. I have portaged a few canoes in my day, so I know what it's like. Not fun, but manageable. With the kayak, I struggle just getting it from the truck to the shore. Sometimes I rely on a cart my friend made for me to help me with that. So in my experience, the canoe beats the kayak hands down when it comes to moving it around on shore. When it comes to maneuverability, this was my first experience paddling a kayak through swifts and small rapids. I found the kayak to be extremely maneuverable compared to my canoe experiences in similar conditions. But perhaps that's because I've only ever been in a tandem canoe, which adds a team element when it comes to communication and maneuvering. So it may not be a fair comparison. Because you're sitting up higher in a canoe than a kayak, I find spotting underwater rocks a lot easier from a canoe. But when it's time to make a sudden maneuver, I think the kayak is more responsive. And speaking of being higher up, let's talk about stability. I find the canoe to be less stable than a kayak in some circumstances, and a contributing factor to that is the higher center of gravity that comes from sitting in a seat that is much higher up than the seat of a kayak. Obviously, hull shapes have a lot to do with that, and my kayak is designed for stability, not speed. On a couple of occasions on the Mississagi, I found myself sitting sideways to the river's current, but not once did I feel there was a risk of tipping over. Now, full disclosure, A narrow-hulled sea kayak can be quite tippy, and I have flipped in them on 1 or 2 occasions. But I've also flipped in a canoe. So sadly, I guess that kind of makes me an expert when it comes to falling out of boats.
Rock there.
So I should know. As it pertains to this kayak and that Grumman canoe, I have to give the nod to the kayak when it comes to stability, owing to its hull shape and low center of gravity.
Watch the big rock. That was tough, eh? Those big rocks at the end. I didn't see them either. I was kind of hung up too.
And the final category I've chosen for comparison is comfort. I think it comes down to personal preference. I am much more comfortable in a kayak than a canoe. My wife and many of my friends are the opposite. They much prefer the comfort of a canoe. And I get it. More legroom, more freedom of movement, and so on. I specifically chose this kayak because it has a large cockpit and a wide hull, making it more like a canoe, I suppose. So I guess the canoe wins this round.
The big sweeping estern ahead of us.
There are other factors that could be considered as well, such as the wind and water conditions you're paddling in, the ease of recovering from a spill, the length of the trip, and so on. It probably all boils down to personal preference.
Okay, that's the worst part. Just getting through that and you'll be all right.
So if you weren't keeping score about which is better, for comfort, carrying capacity, and ease of portaging, the canoe is the better choice. For speed, maneuverability, and stability, I think the kayak comes out on top. So I guess it's a tie. If you have thoughts on this, please leave a comment. I'd like to hear them. Until next time, thanks for watching, and we hope you enjoyed the ride on the Mississagi.
That was a good one.
Well, we did it.
Yeah, it was a nice trip. Good job.